Chapter 9. Her father's last words echoed in Eleanor's mind. Your blood. The key to making it work for everyone. She looked up at Mercer's silhouette, her decision already made. Whatever happened next, she would not let them use her blood to perfect Genesis. She would find a way to use it as her father had intended, to protect, not control. She looked down at Jeff below her. He stared back at her, waiting to see what she wanted them to do next. Dr. Davies, please be reasonable, Mercer called down. Your father has triggered a system-wide failure. Critical patients throughout the facility are at risk. Only you can help us restore order. Eleanor's mind raced. He's lying, trying to appeal to my conscience. But there's something in his tone, and suddenly she understood. He needs me alive. Not just alive, he needs my cooperation. Below, she heard the security team's footsteps halt. A command had been issued. That's why he's negotiating instead of firing tranquilizers down this shaft. Of course. Mercer's silence confirmed her theory. Jeff caught her eye, a faint smile appearing as if he could read her mind. Suddenly, the shaft shuddered. Emergency lights flickered, then went completely dark. Her father's disruption was escalating. System failure imminent, announced an automated voice. Critical containment breach in levels C and D. Emergency lockdown protocols engaged. Then it said it again, and again. Dr. Mercer, a panicked voice called from above. The Genesis samples in Lab 4 are losing stability. Temperature controls are failing. Eleanor saw Mercer's silhouette turn away, caught in the classic dilemma: secure his prize or prevent catastrophe elsewhere. He didn't wait for a reply from her. Seal this shaft and bring her to me when you have her, he barked at the security team below, then disappeared from the opening. The moment his footsteps receded, Jeff moved. 3 rungs up, there's a maintenance panel. Quick! Eleanor climbed, her fingers finding the nearly invisible seam in the wall. Together they pried it open, revealing a narrow utility passage. Ventilation system, Jeff explained as they squeezed through. Connects to the climate control hub. They can't track us in here, too much interference from the air handlers. As they crawled through the dusty passage, Eleanor struggled to keep her grief under control. My father is giving us the biggest window we'll ever get, Jeff finished. The systems are cascading now. Look. Through a grate, Eleanor saw researchers frantically securing samples as alarms blared. No one was looking for escapees. They were fighting to save their work. Your father didn't just crash their computers, Jeff explained as they continued. He triggered a systematic failure in their containment protocols. He's forcing them to choose between finding us and saving years of research. They reached a junction where the passage widened enough to move more freely. Jeff checked a small device pulled from his pocket. The evacuation's become real. They're moving everyone out through the main elevators. He pointed to their right. We go this way. Maintenance elevator shaft. It's on separate systems. As they moved, Eleanor felt the building shudder again. Whatever her father had done, it was utterly catastrophic for the Institute. He knew exactly which systems to target, Jeff said, admiration in his voice. Temperature controls in the biosample storage, authentication servers, containment field generators. He's forcing them to abandon at least 2 levels. They reached the maintenance elevator, currently locked down but with an emergency ladder running alongside it. As they began to climb, Eleanor's arms burned with effort, but the thought of her father gave her strength. How much time do we have? She gasped. 10 minutes, maybe less, before they get enough systems back online to start a proper search. They climbed in silence, Eleanor pushing through her fear of the confined space by focusing on the genetic secret in her blood, the key her father had sacrificed himself to protect. Finally, they reached a service door that Jeff cautiously pushed open to reveal an empty corridor. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. Staff parking is through there, Jeff whispered. I have transport waiting. As they moved towards the exit, a lone security guard appeared, his attention on the tablet in his hand. Don't stop, don't run, Jeff murmured. Act like we belong. They walked purposefully, Jeff nodding at the guard. Systems totally fried. Mercer said to secure the east wing. The guard barely looked up, overwhelmed by the facility-wide crisis. Passes, Jeff held up his maintenance badge. Emergency protocols, Section D, evacuation. The guard waved them through, already distracted by new alerts on his tablet. The cool night air hit Eleanor's face as they emerged. Jeff led her to an unmarked van where a woman waited behind the wheel. "Did you get him?" she asked. "No," Jeff replied as they climbed in. "But we got something much more valuable." He looked at Eleanor. The key to everything he was working for. As the van pulled away, Eleanor looked back at the Institute. Alarms still blared. Emergency vehicles raced towards the main entrance. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew he couldn't leave, but he made sure I could." "And he did more than that," Jeff said. "The damage he's done to their systems will set Genesis back months. He didn't just help you escape, he struck the first real blow against them." The van accelerated onto the highway, blending with late-night traffic. Eleanor thought about her blood vessels, imagined the diagram of them she'd memorized from her anatomy textbook. She had not known they carried her father's secret, the secret he'd protected with his life. "It wasn't for nothing," she whispered. "I promise you, Dad, it wasn't for nothing." Tears stung her eyes. She let them fall. Eleanor sat motionless on the edge of the makeshift bed, staring at nothing. The Resistance safe house was little more than a basement with tiny barred windows at the top of the cement walls, but it was secure. Jeff had assured her of that. She felt hollow, as though something vital had been scooped out of her. The events of the past 24 hours replayed in her mind with merciless clarity. My father was alive. All those years, he was alive. And now he was truly gone. No uncertainty this time. No official notification that could later be revealed as a lie. She had watched him make his choice, sacrificing what remained of his life to give her a chance. The door opened silently, and Jeff entered with 2 steaming mugs, putting one beside her. "You should drink something hot," he said. Eleanor nodded, but didn't reach for the mug. "Did he know I would come?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her attempts to control it. "When you established contact with him through the neural interface, did he ask for me?" Jeff sat down on the bed opposite hers. "He didn't just ask for you, he waited for you. For years." He took a sip from his own mug. "Dr. Davies, your father, he could have let go long ago. The Institute kept him alive because they needed his knowledge, but he chose to endure because he believed you would find your way to him." "How could he possibly have known that?" "He tracked your career, everything he could access through Institute networks. He was so proud of you." Jeff hesitated. "I think he recognized that you were following a path that would eventually lead you to question Genesis, to seek answers." Eleanor closed her eyes. "The card in my locker, curiosity killed the cat." Jeff nodded. "That was him. He managed to get a message to someone in our network, and we got it to you. He was trying to warn me," in his own voice. Finally reaching for the tea, Eleanor wrapped her cold fingers around the mug. "If he wanted to warn me off, why send a cryptic message instead of telling me to stay away?" "Because he also needed you to come," Jeff said. "He needed someone who could understand his work and undo what Genesis had become. He needed his daughter." Eleanor took a sip of tea, but found it hard to swallow. The grief was a physical weight in her chest, making it difficult to breathe. "He didn't just die," she said. "He was killed by people who kept him prisoner for 15 years, who mined his knowledge and intelligence like data storage." Her voice cracked. "And then they twisted his research into something monstrous." "Yes." Jeff didn't offer empty comfort. "And now we have to finish what he started." Eleanor looked up. "My blood samples? Our medic has been analyzing them since we arrived. She should have preliminary results soon." As if on cue, a woman entered, the same one who had driven the escape van. Dr. Karen Liu. She carried a tablet and wore the focused expression Eleanor recognized from her own colleagues when they had significant findings to report. "Dr. Davies," Karen said, "I've completed the initial comparison. And your blood contains antibodies we've never seen before. They're similar to those in the Eastern District neutralizer, but significantly more robust." Karen handed her the tablet. "Look at the binding efficiency." Eleanor studied the molecular models, her interest momentarily overriding her grief. "This is impossible. These antibodies aren't just binding to the Genesis compound, they're actively breaking it down." "Not impossible," Karen said, "just unprecedented. Your immune system doesn't just resist Genesis, it dismantles it." Jeff moved closer, peering at the tablet. How does this compare to the Eastern District formula? Karen tapped the screen, bringing up a comparison chart. The Eastern formula works through competitive inhibition. It binds to the same receptors as Genesis but doesn't trigger the cascade. Effective, but temporary. Eleanor's antibodies actually target the compound itself. It's more evolved than the one based on Simon's blood. As if it's a second-generation response, Eleanor said. Her stomach twisted as realization dawned. He experimented on us. What? Jeff asked. Eleanor put down the tablet before she dropped it, her hands suddenly unsteady. My father. He must have altered us somehow. Simon first, then me. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. That's why our blood carries these unique antibodies. That's why I have stronger resistance than Simon did. I was version 2. There are similarities that go beyond antibody structure, genomic patterns that suggest deliberate engineering. Karen said, as if in agreement. He used his own children as test subjects, Eleanor whispered. How could he? Jeff sat beside her. We don't know the circumstances, Eleanor. Perhaps. Don't, Eleanor cut him off. Don't try to rationalize this. He altered our genetics without consent, without even telling us. Karen's expression remained clinical. To be fair, you would have been too young the last time you saw him. Whatever his methods, the results are remarkable. Your blood contains what might be our best hope against Genesis. And that makes it acceptable? That the end justifies the means? Eleanor attempted a scornful laugh, but all that came out was a noise like a bark. No, Jeff said. Maybe not acceptable, but it does make it valuable, especially now. I need to know exactly what he did to us, to me and Simon. She turned to Karen. Can you sequence my genome? Look for artificial markers? Karen nodded. And I need to find Simon. If his blood was the basis for the Eastern formula, someone must know where he is. Jeff and Karen exchanged a look. Eleanor caught it. What aren't you telling me? She demanded. After a lengthy pause, Jeff said, We've been trying to locate your brother for years. The Eastern neutralizer appeared about 7 years ago. We traced it to a research facility that had supposedly been abandoned after a containment breach. Supposedly, Eleanor pressed. When our people got inside, they found evidence that it had been a working biomedical facility until very recently, and they found records. Karen took over. The records referred to a biological source called Simon-derived material. Not a person. A production system. Eleanor felt nauseated. What are you saying? We don't believe Simon is being held as a conventional prisoner, Karen said, her clinical tone slipping. The documents suggest they're maintaining biological material harvested from him, possibly stem cells, possibly engineered tissue, to produce the antibodies. They refer to the entire system as Simon. Eleanor sank back onto the bed, her mind struggling to process this new horror. You're telling me my brother is what? A collection of lab-grown tissues they're harvesting antibodies from. We don't know for certain, Jeff said quickly, but we need to find out. The facility was moved before our team could gather more intelligence. Eleanor stared at her hands, imagining her brother's blood flowing through her veins. Blood their father had altered. Blood that now made her both uniquely valuable and desperately hunted. We have 2 priorities, she said finally, deliberately flattening her voice so it would behave and not wobble. First, we need to locate whatever remains of my brother, not just for the neutralizer, but because... She swallowed hard. Because he deserves better than to be reduced to a production system. Jeff nodded. And second, we need to understand exactly what my father did to us, not just the effects, but the mechanism. Eleanor met Karen's eyes. Because if corporations are willing to keep my father prisoner for 15 years for his knowledge, imagine what they'll do to get their hands on the actual genetic engineering that creates immunity to their control mechanism. Karen looked troubled. They'll come after you for more than just antibodies. They'll want the blueprint, Eleanor confirmed, the genetic sequence, so they can control who gets immunity and who doesn't. She stood again, moving to stand beneath the small window where a sliver of dawnlight was visible. My blood isn't just a weapon against Genesis. In the wrong hands, it's the key to perfecting it, making it target everyone except those they choose to spare. Then we will make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, Jeff said. Your father made terrible choices, Eleanor, although I think largely inadvertently in pursuit of knowledge. But in the end, he tried to right those wrongs. He gave his life to help you escape. Eleanor closed her eyes. I know, she whispered, and I still don't know whether to thank him or hate him for what he did. Maybe you don't have to choose, Jeff suggested. Maybe both can be true at the same time. Eleanor nodded. She opened her eyes. Grief would have to wait. Her father was beyond her help now, but Simon, or whatever remained of him, was not. I need a secure terminal, she said, turning from the window with renewed purpose. I need to access Institute databases. If anyone knows where Simon is being kept, it's them. That's incredibly risky, Karen warned. So is letting them control the only known immunity to Genesis, Eleanor countered. She looked between them. My father's gone. I couldn't save him, but I can still save Simon. And maybe, if we're very lucky, we can save everyone else too. As she spoke, Eleanor felt something crystallize within her. A clarity of purpose, rising from the ashes of grief and betrayal. Her father had altered her without consent, had made her a target, had abandoned her for 15 years. But he had also given her the tools to fight back. Now she would use them. 3 hours had passed since Eleanor learned the truth about her blood, about Simon, about their father's legacy. She still sat on the bed, staring at nothing. We should eat something, Jeff said, breaking the stillness. He'd been giving her space, recognizing her need to process everything. Eleanor nodded. I keep thinking about what he must have felt, my father, watching us grow up, knowing what he'd done to his own DNA, knowing we'd inherited it. Jeff handed her a bowl of soup. From what little I knew of him, he was haunted by it. He spoke of you with regret, but also pride. Did he ever mention Simon? When you communicated through the neural interface? Jeff hesitated. Only that he was lost but not gone. I didn't understand what he meant until we discovered the Eastern District formula. What kind of father alters his own genetics without knowing how it will affect his children? A desperate one, Karen said, entering with a stack of printouts. I've analyzed your blood work further. She laid the papers on the table. The antibodies show remarkable stability. They're not just temporary immune responses. They've been encoded into your B-cell memory. Eleanor put down the untouched soup and examined the analysis. Permanent immunity, she murmured. But more than that, active defense. Exactly, Karen pointed to a diagram. Your immune system doesn't just resist Genesis, it recognizes and neutralizes it. The Eastern formula derived from Simon is a pale imitation. Eleanor stared at the papers, seeing not just molecular structures, but the reflection of her father's mind. His brilliance, his foresight, his terrible choice. He did this because he saw what was coming, she said quietly. He saw the possibility of immune control decades before it happened. Jeff nodded. He was trying to protect you both. By making us into lab rats, Eleanor said. By making you free, Karen countered. Think about it, Eleanor. Everyone else on the planet can be controlled through Genesis. You can't. It was true. It might be a violation. It was also a gift. We need to do something with this, she said. Not just understand it, but use it. What are you thinking? Jeff asked. But Karen appeared in the doorway. Security drones are sweeping this sector. We need to leave. Jeff leapt to his feet. We must get you to our Eastern research facility where... No, Eleanor said. Jeff and Karen exchanged glances. What do you mean no? Karen asked. Eleanor checked she'd not left anything behind and turned to them. I mean, I'm not going to your facility to become another lab specimen, another biological resource for people to extract value from. That's not what we're suggesting, Jeff said. The scientists there would work with you. Like the Institute worked with my father? Eleanor countered. Like they worked with whatever remained of Simon? I've just seen how organizations treat people who have something valuable in their blood. Karen moved closer. Eleanor, we're not the Institute. Aren't you? You want my blood. You want what I can give you. How long before working with me becomes working on me? Jeff's expression hardened. This isn't just about you, Eleanor. Millions of people are under Genesis control. Your immunity could save them. I know that, Eleanor said, and I intend to develop a countermeasure. But on my terms, I'm a geneticist. This is my expertise. Karen glanced at Jeff. Eleanor saw a silent communication pass between them. I understand your concerns, Jeff said. His voice had softened in a way that immediately put Eleanor on alert. Perhaps there's a compromise, he went on. We have smaller research outposts. Eleanor noticed Karen's hand moving towards her pocket. You're planning to sedate me, aren't you? Eleanor said, taking a step back. Force me to cooperate? Karen froze. Jeff's expression confirmed Eleanor's suspicions. We can't let you leave, Eleanor, Jeff said, dropping the pretense. What's in your blood is too important. I'm sorry, but the lives of millions outweigh your personal freedom. Eleanor backed toward the door. So I'm just another resource to be exploited. Just like my father, just like Simon. It's not exploitation if it's for the greater good, Karen argued, although her eyes flickered. That's exactly what the Institute would say, Eleanor replied. Jeff moved to block the doorway. Don't make this difficult. You'll be treated well. You'll have input, but we do need you. Eleanor's mind raced. Fighting was pointless. Fine, she said, forcing her shoulders to slump in defeat. You're right. I can't do this alone. Jeff and Karen exchanged surprised glances. Eleanor saw them relax a little. I'll go to your outpost, she continued, but I have conditions. I control my own blood samples. I direct the research. We can discuss specifics once we're safe, Jeff said, relief evident in his voice. But we need to move now, Eleanor nodded. I'll just finish gathering my things. We need to go, Jeff replied. Karen, prep the tunnel route. As Karen left to prepare their exit, Eleanor moved around the room collecting her few belongings. Casually, she picked up the tablet and slipped it into her bag. Which outpost are we heading to? She asked. North Sector, Jeff said, checking his communicator. About 6 hours' journey. Eleanor nodded. How do we get there? Underground to the river checkpoint. Then overland. Perfect. She knew exactly where she needed to make her move. 40 minutes later, they were moving through the tunnel system beneath the city. Jeff led the way, followed by Eleanor, with Karen bringing up the rear. Junction ahead, Jeff announced. We'll rest for 2 minutes before continuing to the river access. As they reached a junction where several tunnels converged, Eleanor spotted her opportunity. A maintenance ladder led up to what appeared to be a service hatch. She stopped and said, I need water. As she reached for her bag, Karen handed her a canteen. Here. Eleanor took a long drink, positioning herself closer to the ladder. She handed the canteen back to Karen. Thanks. And I'm sorry. For what? Karen asked. This. Eleanor swung her bag hard, catching Karen in the face. She stumbled backwards, colliding with Jeff, who had turned at the commotion. In the confusion, Eleanor lunged for the ladder, scrambling upwards with desperate speed. Eleanor, stop! Jeff shouted, jumping up after her. She kicked out, connecting with his shoulder. She pushed herself higher until her hands found the hatch wheel and twisted it with all her strength, terrified that it wouldn't budge. But suddenly, it gave way with a rusty screech. There's nowhere to go, Karen called, starting up the ladder. The Institute is hunting you too. Eleanor scrabbled through the hatch and slammed it shut behind her, turning the wheel to lock it. It wouldn't hold them long. She ran through debris-strewn corridors. The first time she stopped, she heard the sounds of pursuit behind her. She took off again, pushing herself until her side burned. A stairwell appeared ahead. She took the steps 2 at a time, lungs burning, legs screaming with effort. At the top, a heavy door stood between her and the surface. She pushed against it, but it barely moved. Bracing her shoulder against the rusted metal, she shoved with everything she had. The door groaned, then gave way, spilling her onto a deserted street. Rain pelted down, soaking her instantly. Disoriented, Eleanor picked a direction and ran, hearing the door bang open behind her. She darted between abandoned buildings, taking random turns, desperate to shake her pursuers. The sound of drones buzzed overhead, Institute or Resistance. There was no way of knowing. Both would be hunting her now. She ran and ran, only stopping when the stitch stole her breath. She was in an unfamiliar industrial area. Shipping containers and derelict warehouses loomed like shadows in the downpour. She ducked into an alley, gasping for breath, trying to formulate a plan. The distinctive whine of a vehicle approaching made her press deeper into the shadows. A black van slowed at the alley entrance, its headlights cutting through the rain. Eleanor's heart stuttered. Had they found her already? The van stopped, its side door slid open. Get in! A male voice shouted. Eleanor remained frozen in the shadows, weighing impossible options, staring at a black van in the rain, its side open to a dark abyss, except for a couple of pale ovals shouting at her. "Eleanor, it's us! Hurry! Come on!" That voice, that familiar voice. She peered through the rain, hope beginning to blossom. Her body had started running towards them before her mind had caught up. It was Thad and Greg. "How did you?" she began. "No time," Thad shouted. "Drones closing in. Get yourself over here." Eleanor sprinted for the van. She dove inside, and Greg pulled her in, sliding the door shut as the van accelerated away. "I thought you were dead," Eleanor gasped, trying to catch her breath. "The hospital." "We nearly were," Greg said, handing her a towel. "Got out through the emergency tunnels just before the place blew. Been running ever since." "How did you find me?" Eleanor asked. "How did you know I'd be here?" Thad turned to look at her from the passenger seat. "We didn't. We've been tracking Institute security channels. They're going crazy about a high-value asset in this sector. Then we spotted resistance comms activity too." He studied her face. "What did you do to get both sides hunting you this hard?" Eleanor hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I have an inheritance," she finally said. "That contains something they both want." Greg raised an eyebrow. "Must be something special to have the big players this worked up." "It is," Eleanor confirmed. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere neither side will look," Thad said. "Old medical research facility in the flooded district. Been abandoned for years, but the lab levels are still dry. Power too, if you know how to access it." "And you just happen to know about this place?" Eleanor asked. Greg smiled. "Before the Institute, before Genesis, I was head of maintenance there. Still have the access codes. It's not fancy, but it's off everyone's radar." As the van navigated through back streets, Eleanor felt the adrenaline begin to subside, replaced by a cautious hope. These men had no agenda beyond survival, no organization directing their actions. They lived according to their own principles and morals, which, in her previous association with them, coincided with hers. She felt lucky to have fallen in with them again. "I need a lab," she said. "Equipment. I need to analyze some samples." She patted her bag. Thad and Greg exchanged looks. "Well," Greg said, "you're in luck. That's exactly what this place used to do. And I'm pretty sure the isolation chambers in the lower levels still have functioning equipment." For the first time since her father's death, Eleanor felt something like optimism. Not safety. She might never be truly safe again. But possibility. A chance to use what her father had given her on her own terms. "Thank you," she said simply. "Don't thank us yet," Thad warned. "Getting there won't be easy, and once we arrive, it's still 3 people against the 2 most powerful organizations in the city." 3 people, Eleanor said, "plus the most valuable blood on the planet." Neither Thad nor Greg reacted. They didn't ask. They didn't look at her differently. Thad kept talking, deliberately casual. "To be fair, it's a few more than just us 3. There's Alfie. He's handy with that ancient drill of his. And Martha," Greg added. "She makes unreal pancakes. You'll love them, Nell." "Tisdale, too," Thad said. "Mad about his vertical greens." "And Bernie," Greg finished. "Keeps the lights on." Eleanor leaned back as the van cut through the rainy night. The tension that had encased her recently eased. It felt, unexpectedly, like she was coming home. She made a quiet promise to her father. She would use what he'd given her, not as a captive. Not as a specimen, but as the scientist he had raised. And she would do it her way.